Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and a very big welcome back to the podcast. And joining me today is a new guest, one who I, truth be told, haven't actually known that long, but um, yes, I will let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Zero. I go by Zero is amorphous or nebulous based on my accounts. I do a lot of things, so I have a lot of different account names. Hi, I'm happy to be here. So yeah.
So
It's hard to give a very simple explanation of what I do. I kind of just exist.
it's a kind of mix of a lot of different things.
Yes, I do whatever wherever the wind takes me. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start this off with just a general question of how did you start? Like, what was the first thing that sort of started on the journey? And this isn't going to be like an interviewee type thing, it's just a general question to get the ball rolling.
Well, honestly, that is a hard question to answer for me because I've always kind of been really into um like art and creative stuff. I'm gonna blame my dad because he's a massive nerd. And I've talked about this before in other places. Yeah, he was basically the catalyst for my being. He really likes things like Marvel, um, and like Fallout Boy and all like basically just like loads of nerdy stuff. I can't. There's one space game. I can't remember what it's called. It's like an open world explorer with the triangle or something like a diamond. That he plays a lot. But anyway, as I was
I haven't heard of that one before.
I can't remember what it's called. It's like Sky something. I don't know. There's like a triangle, a diamond symbol, and it's like the whole game. Um, but I genuinely I have no idea.
Gotta look that up.
Yeah, that might be. I'm gonna have a look as well. What is it? Diamond Space Game.
Because when you said open world space, the first thing that jumped to my head immediately was like Eve Online or something. But I don't remember that having
Yeah.
diamonds.
No,
Not that I've even played it.
it's like the symbol for the game, but it's like I don't know. Oh, it's I know what it is as well. I know what it is. I just can't remember. It's like hold on.
You were right about the natural course of the podcast. We've already got off on a tangent.
I know it's listen. I'm really bad. Okay. I do this all the time. I don't have any straight point. I just yap. It's called No Man's Sky. So
That's it, right? Yeah,
yeah,
I it,
the
it
little
was
symbol.
it was bugging me because for some reason I never think of that one as an open world. I mean, I've never actually
Yeah.
played it, but it
Neither have I, but I've seen my dad play it, and it is an open world like sandbox kind of game. Obviously, you've got like the world and you do things, and there's like it's less like a Minecraft sandbox, but it's still considered one because you can like do whatever and you can discover new planets, and it's like anyway, it's massive. It's a massive game, um, and space, which is always cool. But you know, that's just I'm biased.
I've got a fair few space games as well. They're awesome.
I want to play more space games. Space games are cool, okay? There's like so many. I'm getting off track. Right, hold on. Let me bring it back a bit. So, the point of me mentioning my dad being a nerd is we used to watch like loads of cartoons. Um, let me think of an example. My brain's gone blank. Um, Adventure Time was one of them. Um, and there was another one, but I can't remember.
There were. If I had to try and retrace all the old cartoons I used to watch, we'd be here all day because there were quite a
Yeah,
few.
Honestly, I don't. I think it was warrior cats or something. Anyway, there's just a bunch of like old, not old, but like to me they're old, like really nerdy out there cartoons. And then
Not
instead of
Thundercats.
maybe, yeah, I think it was as well. I think it was. It had cats and they were people, and I remember I had a massive thing when I was a kid. I really, really loved cheetahs and like cats. I just loved them, okay? And I had like an adopted snow leopard with one of those trust foundations.
Hmm.
I was really into cats, and I still am. I love cats.
I mean, I love wildlife and everything, and like leopards and all that. Like when I came to creating, like, one thing I've been doing with my fantasy world and its trilogy is I've been trying to incorporate animals as much as I can without it like being forced or them almost taking the sense of like that I've added them in, but I've also given them a bit of a purpose. And like one of the first ones I was like was yes, leopards. Leopards are
Oh,
coming in and they are having
absolutely.
a purpose.
Yes, you have to. They're amazing. One of my favorite things about like fantasy worlds is that you can create new animals. Oh, I love it. I love stuff like that.
that I would say probably the newest one that I've come up with out of all of them is, well, it's not really new. It's more it, I've taken a lot of animals that there's a couple in there that don't really get featured in fantasy that much, like rhinos. Rhinos feature quite a bit, but
Yeah,
then you've got others that I've brought in that are I've sort of some of them I've just stuck to the same old gist that they tend to be like hyenas, but then you've got others that I've twisted. Like when you see wolves in fantasy, they tend to be not all the time, but most of the time they tend to be evil. In this, they're good.
yeah,
Jackals as well is the same,
yeah.
and got giant scorpions that are some of the ancient guardians of the world,
Oh
and
my
got
god, that's so cool.
and just other things like that, and also taking inspiration from other stuff. Though there's a type of rhino that's not the guardian; it's just another species. But to try to keep them separate, I ended up actually looking at prehistoric rhinos. Can't remember if they. I'm guessing they have an official name. I don't know what it is. Uh,
Probably.
uh,
They all have fancy names.
yeah, effectively fur-covered rhinos, and then I've also looked at like mythology for some of them. Like I've got elephants in there, but they're elephants that are based off of Indonesian mythology elephants. Like the what are they called? It's not the Sindaku. It's Lemu Botswana or something like that. But it's essentially they were like a cross between a griffin and an elephant. I've just removed the griffin aspect, so they're an elephant with wings.
Wow, Jesus, wow. That is, you know what? It's always interesting to hear about like different, um, like cultures. Not like fairy tales, I guess, but just like mythos. It's so interesting because what the hell is a griffin and an elephant? I respect it, okay. That
Hmm.
someone thought yes, these two animals they would go great together, and they just did it. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
there was going back onto the animation front, and it's a series that unfortunately only ever got two seasons, but I absolutely adore, and I've still rewatched it a couple of times. But Huntic, and it had this whole concept with titans and everything, and of course some of the titans were complete just creations and all of that. You had others that were based off of like different mythologies and everything, and when you look at Hunting, it's a cross between like almost some of those kind of it's almost like a mishmash of like trying to save the world mixed in with almost a kind of Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh aspect mixed in with
Oh yeah.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, yeah. What a good combination, though. You know, things don't hit as hard as they did back in like the early 2000s. I feel like because a lot
No,
of
no, they
cartoons
don't.
nowadays they don't have this like hidden plot in them, but they used to, and I crave that. Okay, I crave the overarching plot of like these silly little children's cartoons.
I won't lie. Also, Hunting did get not necessarily dark, but it wasn't afraid to tug at the strings, shall we say, in some cases.
Yeah,
Like you have these, and you have something that you don't really see in the likes of well, to my knowledge, you didn't really see in like the Pokemon animation or things like that. But you do actually have like one of the Titans actually effectively die, and it's
Oh,
like, oh, so that happened, and
yeah, wow.
and like what happens and the whole plot that it links to, and yeah, it is, and the sort of unofficial notion that there are actual characters, not the Titans, but the actual human characters, and some of them are essentially killed off screen. But it's never like referred to. It's just you see something happen and then they're never seen again, and it's like, ah,
Yeah, wow. That is dark. I just like cartoons like that. They're really good. I'm really a sucker for the trope of like the really like kiddie children's show, or not necessarily children's show, but like cartoon, and it's all like fun at first, and then come the second season, there's like a darker undertone. I love that. I love that so much. Um,
yeah, that's something that I know not everyone liked this. I absolutely loved it because I will admit this. I am more of a DC than Marvel fan, and I know DC do these like switch to the darker tone very well.
yeah,
And Ruby was another one where the first two volumes, like they had their serious moments and everything, but for the most part they were chilled and laid back. And then even the third volume, but then towards the end of the third volume, it just completely flips, and it's like,
I love
who?
stuff like that.
It is. It's like you go from this, oh fun, oh they got this tournament contest, but you know this background stuff's happening, but I guess it will build up for a couple of seasons. Nope, it's happening now.
Honestly, I love it. They just throw things at you, and they're like, "Yep, you can handle this because we've written it. It's great. It's great." They have full trust in us as the viewers, kind of. I don't know. Maybe they just want to torture us a little bit, but I appreciate that because you don't get that a lot these days. You got to appreciate, the absolute hoops these animation and comic writers are jumping to get us to be blown away by just the audacity. Because seriously, I mean, like, you read some things and you're like, surely it won't go this dark and treacherous place, and then it does. It's great. Subvert my expectations, please.
I think that's what anyone who, when they first came out, I'm guessing that's how people felt about the Injustice comics. It's like, oh, we've had this tragedy. Oh, there's been a death of quite a well-known villain, but things may recover, and I know it just goes deeper and deeper.
They just like spiral, don't they? I think
Hmm.
that's something that Adventure Time does especially well. I will hold my hands up, okay. I haven't watched every single episode of Adventure Time because it's difficult, okay. I watched
I've
it religiously on like Cartoon Network back in the day, right? And then they were all out of order, and then recently I started trying to rewatch it, but like to get them in order is absolute it's a nightmare, and there's so many episodes. There's so many. You just like anyway.
I've only ever watched a few of them, so
Well, it is a really good show, but it's very confusing. Not even I know the full story. I know something about like Finn's dad comes up, and like Marceline and Ice King, their whole story. It's yeah, but it starts. It's a very typical like, oh, it's a kids' cartoon show. They're very silly, and then eventually, like as Finn grows up, he's the main character. He like he struggles with himself, and it's interesting as well. I really like this when they make the main character flawed, and they
yeah.
don't make them very like Mary Sue, I can do no wrong. He goes through like I guess puberty. He just grows up and he does like bad things, or not bad, but like he doesn't really think about how his actions affect the world and other people around him, and it's so interesting to see because like they have real consequences for the rest of the show. um, and all of the characters have real like working lives, and they fit so well together. It doesn't just feel like this is a plot and this kind of happens conveniently. The characters kind of write themselves in a way, and it's really good. I do like it. But yeah, it's all really confusing, and I haven't seen the finale or any of the like massive plot episodes, but I've seen like video essays on it because I just have to. Okay, video essays, they're like my lifeblood. I love them so much.
I will admit that I have. Yeah, I've thoroughly. I've got a few points that I want to pop on, especially that one about the flawed character one, because there's got. I've seen one thing where that's got a real. It's done really well, and then another where it just kind of didn't fail necessarily, but got stuck in a massive rut. But just yeah, going off of the like editor, not the editorial, but the essay type videos and everything like that. I watch a lot of lore videos and world building stuff and all that, and I also watch a lot of theory videos.
Oh yeah.
And for some unknown reason, and I will say that I did study philosophy, so and we did watch a part of the first film. We never got around to finishing it, but I started watching lore and theory videos over the Matrix.
Oh my god. No, you know what? That's 100% valid. I hadn't seen The Matrix actually until, oh god, I think it was actually like during lockdown that I watched it because my dad was like, "You need to watch The Matrix. It's like the pinnacle of like media. It changed the way that like people approach sci-fi." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." But it just like I have this problem with like slow starting films, and I find that like the older films are so slow sometimes, especially like sci-fi. But it was really good, and I did watch it. Okay, it was good. I will hold my hands up, and I love theory videos. My favorite theory for the Matrix is that they're still in a simulation. This is just the simulation that they're put in to help them, play the fantasy of being like escaping the simulation. That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Mm. The ones that I was mainly focusing on were from a character who's not in the first film. He's in the second and the third, but the Merovingians, supposedly one of the exiles who was from like the previous versions of the Matrix, and like how has he survived? How has he managed to get through, and all that. But anyway, the and one of the just shows I want to address that, by all accounts, is a bit silly. Does have the jokey bits, and also it was a Lego one, so it kind of.
Okay.
Pardon?
Okay. I want to know what show this is now. You're interesting me.
Ninjago.
Oh my god. I loved Ninjago. I watched that as it came out as well. Oh my god, I love Ninjago. I did not expect you to say that at
I
all.
I
Oh my
am
god.
not sure. I'm not sure what they did with the last couple of seasons. That seemed a bit weird. But
Yeah.
aside from that, like that was a show that. I mean, it was a show that had a lot of different like things going on for like, and I think that's the thing is that, and I guess you could also incorporate this into like the growth of like YouTube and things like that, like, and also various interests like young people watching like historical conflict films and things like that, like all of these different elements in Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and everything. So it's like it's something that the older developers, I don't know so much about nowadays, but the older developers in animation and that for the children's, they would get really well with the understanding that, yes, it's still for kids, so we can make it a bit fun and all of that, but we also need like serious tone. DC did it with Justice League and the Batman animations. Marvel did it with Marvel did it with Wolverine and the X Men and Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Unfortunately, one of them got cancelled, and the latter got replaced by a more child-orientated show that most people review as worse. and but you could look across the media and you could see it in various things like, and this sort of drifts onto the other point about the Mary Sue kind of dynamic or the flawed characters. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and this also addresses the point of shows releasing not in order, because that got the order for that show, aside from the final season or last couple of seasons, was utterly messy. Like
Yeah.
it, there was no order to it, but Ahsoka, a character who through Disney has become even more popular, has had their own show recently and all of that, or the first season at least. But a lot of, well, most new fans of Ahsoka who have either watched her through Rebels or maybe season 7 of the Clone Wars or Mandalorian or her own show, they have no real understanding of how much that character was hated when she first came through.
Yeah.
Like, she was, and it was, and because of the way they released the episodes and the seasons and that, it wasn't really until beyond season 3 that that actually repaired. But she did recover, and then she was in some of the most crucial arcs, and you got to see her develop. But in the first like couple of seasons, like she was not good, and so you see that development, and you do see like the flaws get addressed and worked on and all of that. But then the one that I feel like got stuck in a rut, and I don't know if it was just this or just the problem with trying to create a character like that for TV. The Flash TV show, like you had Barry go back in time to make a choice and everything. It had a consequence. It came back to haunt him, and
Yeah.
then it just repeated that cycle over and over again. And it gave the impression that you've got a protagonist here who never learns.
Yeah. I
And
mean, to be fair though, I mean, my biggest grievance for the entire film is I'm pretty sure that's not how time loops work.
oh, I was talking about the TV show. I haven't actually seen the film.
I don't know about the TV show. I don't think I've watched it, but it sounds very similar to the film because it's pretty much the same plot. Like he goes back in time because he's fast, which I don't even want to talk about. But um, if it's the same, if it's the same as the like film, I get what you mean because he just doesn't. But I don't know about the series. From what I can tell though, time loops and like repeating uh periods of like well time it's just time loop again. They're hard to like work with because you have obviously the type where they're aware they're in a time loop and the one where they're not, and the one where they are is probably the trickiest because they have to like assess the actual emotions in the like being tasked with, oh, you're stuck in this loop and you need to get out, but also you need to change, but you've not got anyone helping you and the day doesn't change, so it's not like you're being faced with more like challenging ideas. You're just being like, you have to kind of figure things out, and maybe they don't even think they're the problem kind of thing or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, it's just I feel like a lot, especially these days, multiverses and like timelines have really become popularized, and I have a problem with that. I like these things a lot. I was in the Undertale fandom, okay, so I have a very old understanding of it, but when the problem with like bringing them into new media is a lot of the people who work on shows know the basics, but they don't really know how to handle it. And a lot of the times it comes across as like tacky or like you haven't really thought about this, especially when it comes to things like Sonic, for example. And I have a bone to pick with Sonic for this. I'm sorry, I just do. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to like new creators coming onto a project, and I feel like unfortunately, and it really pains me to say this, it is something that has plagued Halo for the better part of a decade now. Um, is that you you have people, and this isn't all the creators. Some of the creators do come in, have a new like idea, and it works really well. But a lot of them come in having been, and it's almost like this fine balance. You've got ones who are too inspired by like previous work, and others who have no clue like what they're going into.
yeah,
But you've almost got it where they may try to re- take so much inspiration from what came before that it's not taking inspiration; it is just replicating the same thing, and and because you're replicating the same thing, you're replicating the same mistakes. And
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with Halo with 343 is that they started with Halo 4, they went their own direction in that, and it was a bit controversial, but it was also quite nice. They were clearly trying to form their own identity. But then they went into Halo 5 and like chucked out half the stuff they did in 4. And it's like they
Yeah.
it the Halo 4 Halo 5 relationship is the Force Awakens Last Jedi relationship of gaming.
Mm. No, I feel that. I feel like a lot of problems with like when you have new generations working on something that's quite old is that you a lot of them are fans and that's why they want to get into it, and I get that, but instead of being a fan you need to actually respect the media to an extent where you kind of know it, but you're not idolizing it. So you're aware that there is problems that can be kind of adjusted and expanded upon. I think less than the story, you need to know the world building. What makes it work? What's engaging? This also works for like media, um, but
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
system. But
World building is, I mean, writer and yeah, world building is something that I argue is so fundamentally crucial for all
yeah,
of it because especially nowadays with like, I mean, you look at YouTube alone, and I'm sorry for cutting you off there, but you said world building, and I was
go
like,
ahead.
oh, and the you look at well, as much as it pains me to say it, I guess Star Trek, but also Star Wars, Halo, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. You've got all of these different things, and you've got countless like channels on YouTube who have been able to build up their success from just talking about the world building, and it
Yeah.
is like they don't necessarily talk about like reviewing the scenes. I mean, some of them do,
Mm.
but most of them just talk about the world building. But the world building has been built up so much that they have a a gold mine of content that they can make from
Yeah.
just the world building. I mean, yeah, I'll let you move on from that.
Well, no, I love world building. I actually do. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Okay. I love world building, like actually doing it. But I also like analyzing stuff like that. I think one of the things that I really, really liked about old Marvel was that you can look at a scene and you can analyze like really micro details. Recently, they have fallen off with that, I will admit, um, because there used to be like really subtle things, and you could pick apart like just how things came together, like the brains behind the operation who've like um influenced certain events to happen like real time, and it was great. And I'm gonna bring it back to Sonic again, okay? Because this is a good example of world building done wrong, and people might come at me for this, but I have, as of recently, okay, Sonic has not taken like as a big piece of media like across all of its canon events. Um, have they haven't taken the time to like actually knit everything together. Like there is some really good stuff in there. Obviously, there's quite a lot of basic stuff, but one thing that you notice with Sonic is that they don't really take into like consideration the other things that they've made, and they have a dedicated lore team, okay, that specifically tries to patch things together, and Sega just ignores them entirely. Like I think on one of the head, uh, I think I can't remember who exactly he was or what his name was. I think he worked on IDW and he was a um lore specialist, and he has a podcast, and he said that um, they, like the team, flagged several inconsistencies with Sonic Prime, and Sega just completely flat out ignored them because obviously they want revenue. They want to get on this like multiverse train that's happening, and I
Yeah,
really, really, really don't like the way that they handled it in Sonic Prime because like I said before, I was really into Undertale back in the day, so like back when it came out. Okay, and as a child trying to understand multiverses, okay, it was quite daunting, but because I have that base understanding of it, I understand like kind of where these shows are coming from and like how they're supposed to work. And it's not the way that like the Shatterverse kind of exists. I don't know if you've seen Sonic Prime, so I won't go that into it. But like, it just it's not even that. Okay, it's the way that just they handle the whole lore aspect of it because apparently Sonic Prime was canon. Um, and I'm gonna describe it very simply because okay, Sonic Prime has the most inconsistencies in lore that I think there has ever been in a piece of Sonic media, not counting Sonic Boom, but that wasn't canon. And it was made canon officially, so now the Sonic fans have to try and find out where this fits in the lore, but Sonic doesn't act like he acts in pretty much any of the other games or shows or like spin offs, and it doesn't even matter because apparently the whole Shatterverse, like the multiverse part of it, was mute anyway. Mute, whatever. It just doesn't even matter, but it's still canon. I don't understand why they had to make that canon. It just annoys me a little bit. Um, but yeah,
This is now causing me to question is like because the Sonic stuff is stuff that I've kind of drifted in and out of throughout the years, but it's like okay, so uh, what makes up the Sonic canon?
okay, so I don't actually know off the top of my head like the actual timeline. So all of the games I'm pretty sure are canon, except for Sonic 3 and Knuckles because Hypersonic was in there and Sega couldn't like they just couldn't. Okay, they had to nerf him. He was too powerful. And also in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, this is something that I have a very big grievance with by the way. Sorry, you've activated an unskippable cutscene right now. I'm going to have to yap at you for a bit. Um this is my hyperfixation at the moment, okay? My whole room is like Sonic themed, unintentionally. I just come back in and out of it like all the time, and I just have loads of like figures and stuff. Anyway, back to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The original and first is the same thing. Anyway, the original appearance of the Master Emerald on Angel Island, it's hidden away in like this little underground cave, and like it's notoriously difficult for Sonic to kind of find it in the first place. And then you do the special stages with all of the like Chaos Emeralds and whatever. But anyway, the reason, okay, that I think they didn't make that game canon was because they wanted the Master Emerald to be easier to steal. So they put it on this like altar on the top of the island. They could have just put it underground, okay? And yes, Eggman did steal it in that game. But also Sonic was like actively distracting Knuckles and he had the entire game to like find a way down there and get it and like watching all the characters like explore this island. He didn't have to do any work, okay? He's an evil mastermind, but he's lazy and that's like his whole thing kind of. But anyway, um, yeah, I want them to bring that back, and in my head, it's down there, safe and sound, okay? And he could just patrol the island, and no one knows where it is. It's a big secret, and it's like smart, right? But no, instead, there's this altar, and yes, it does make for some really, really cool shots, especially in like some of the animated scenes, for the Frontiers timeline. But again, I'm biased. I just really love like cool fight scene animation and Sonic. But yeah. Anyway, back to Sonic lore. So Sonic Prime is canon. Sonic, the first one, I'm pretty sure is canon. And the second, I think. So a lot of those. I don't know if the first 3D game was canon. Um, any hardcore Sonic fans watching this will be like, "You're a fake fan. You're a fake fan." But I promise, okay, I have a bad memory. A lot of the games I'm pretty sure are canon apart from that one. Um, and some of the like series are also canon. Obviously Sonic Prime is. I don't know if Sonic X is because I feel like that's different. Because some of the like games have humans and some of them don't. Obviously Eggman doesn't count because in Sonic X he is in their universe, but he also is like the only human, but they also go to the universe with humans and it's like I don't want to question that actually. Um but yeah, most of it is canon. But there are certain things that they have to take out for like consistency reasons. Like, for example, the Sonic movie universe is a different canon. So you've got the movie canon, like the game canon, the series canon, but sometimes the series canon crosses over with the game canon, so like Prime. Um, but yeah, the movie one is separate, which is interesting. Speaking of the movie, I'm really excited for that. That's all I have to say because I will talk forever.
kind in my head, it just kind of turns back and begs the question: it's like, does that mean does that mean in like if there is like other universes out there in the Sonic, does that mean that technically the Mario and Sonic Olympic Games or Sonic All Stars Racing are all there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I'm not sure if those are in the canon, but I personally think that that would be hilarious, and so I'd like to believe that they are, but I don't think they are. Things like that, like crossover games, I'm not sure if that's a separate canon or if they're just like straight up not. Because also Sonic was in Wreck-It Ralph, and that's not canon, but like that's technically also counted as Sonic Media because he was there, like he existed there. So where does that fit? Like that it doesn't. But I need to know if that's like a place in the timeline because he was there, okay? He sat in that like group and he explained Wi-Fi. How does he Anyway, I'm gonna get sidetracked again, so
What was I was going to say something and I've forgotten what I was going to say now.
Sonic's taken over the brain.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, oh. Yeah, what I was going to say is like you've recently had something else, and like haven't watched it in years, but in terms of like continuing a continuity and supposedly the same canon, it kind of takes the cake a little bit.
Hmm.
The whole Power Rangers mythos supposedly like 30 years where and each year's supposedly had a different season and all of that, and yet all of it happens in the same continuity. It's like
Yeah.
how?
Oh, I
How?
get that.
Like
It's
one,
confusing.
like I do appreciate that. Like at least earlier on, they did do, and they still tried to keep with the mentality sometimes where they did cross over the different groups, but at the same time, it's just so blasé and everything. And yeah, well, world building is such an interesting thing because like here is the other thing, especially when it comes to stories that have reached their conclusion or stuff like that. When it comes to world building, or if you are going to move to a area where the world is potentially coming to an end, do you just close it off there, or do you leave it open ended? It's like it's one of those things because I am probably as much of a Lord of the Rings fan as you are for Sonic, and the thing that and it was a massive inspiration, and I'm going to be doing some of it on stream in a little bit, but the thing that always gets to me about the Lord of the Rings universe continuity, whichever you want to call it, is that it was never able to be finished, and
Yeah.
it it is one of those things that is really really sad because it's like you can only ever theorize on what Tolkien was intending for the rest of it, but at the exact same time it also leads for this almost like creative freedom and all of these what ifs, and again drawing it back like passion projects with mods and other games and things. So you've got this real open-ended kind of ending and a lot of stuff that's still just never been explained in that, but then you have creators who are able to come along with mods and that and then put their own spin on it and develop these into a point where you could envision them actually being a part of the original universe.
I mean, mods are like they're so interesting to me because obviously my main interaction with mods are like Minecraft mods, okay? Because listen, they're just fun. And I think it takes a lot of effort. It's a sandbox game, okay? If I want to add fairy lights, there's a mod for that. In fact, there's
Yeah,
seven, okay?
it's wait, really?
There's a lot. I can actually Google it right now. How many Minecraft fairy light mod? Because there has to be fabric mods and forge mods.
Hmm.
Because obviously there's different and and like I'm not counting the iterations. There's one here called Fairy Lights, but I know that there's another one by McCaw, I think. Don't actually quote me on that. I don't know. Let me just search curse word and see what comes up. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if that's what I've got 5 so far. 6, I think that's 6. 7. There you go. That's at least 7, but I'm only on page 1, so yeah. Minecraft mods, there's a lot of them. Everyone thinks they can do better than everyone else, and sometimes it's true.
If you were to, and I guess this can go for both in some cases, like or maybe even three, like the multi. Actually, yeah, let's break it down into the three. We'll start with characters. If you were to, well, if you were creating like something, or if you were advising someone on character creation for like their lead protagonist or something, how would you navigate around the Mary Sue dynamic without? It's almost one of these fine lines. It's like, how do you navigate around the Mary Sue dynamic whilst also making the character flawed but also likable? Like, so it's not just this protagonist where they're so flawed that it's like, why are you the protagonist?
Yeah, there is a few shows that are really bad for that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, unfortunately. But
Ironically, I think um, that there's been a few seasons of things like Power Rangers and that where they've had really, really awful head protagonists, like
yeah,
outwardly questioning. It's like, why are you there? And like, I watch, I some the way I caught up with all of this was watching through Linkara, who addressed each season and did his own interpretation and reviews of it. And one of the most hated seasons, which was the 2010 or 2011 one, um, he goes on a full blown tangent and rant as to why the team are just awful protagonists.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to kind of navigate around the Mary Sue verse like hated. You have to find that perfect middle, like a likable character who is also realistic. Like I think a lot of people struggle because they don't actually think about their character as a person, which I know is like a weird way to kind of have it viewed, but that's how I do it in my writing, and I feel like when you kind of see this person as an actual person, even though they're not real, but you know, it helps you kind of put into perspective that like they have a certain mindset they're going to be thinking in, um and I don't know, the way that I can describe it is like the characters need to be likable first, but you have to also build their character traits off of each other. I think the best example I can think of is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, okay? Because in every iteration there is something going on, okay? In like the 2018 version, I there's a lot of slack for this version because like no one is nice to Mikey and he deserves so much better, okay? Raph has like anger issues, Leo is a perfectionist, Donnie is Donnie's cool. I like him. Okay, he's a little bit weird with April, but he kind of slays. So we'll let him have this one. But they're all likable characters because they have moments outside of their flaws where they can be good and they fight for the greater good, obviously. But I don't think that's what makes a good protagonist because even in like She-Ra, I really like Catra. Okay, and she is the antagonist, like for half of the thing. But she's a good character because we see her motivations and like why she is like that, and then she eventually grows as a character. So I guess like the way to go about it is making sure that your character, if it's only one protagonist especially, has motivations and has like reasons for why they have flaws, even if it's just like something small, like why psychologically have they grown to have this intrinsically in their brain, because Leo in the 2018 version, like he was the um I keep saying 2018, it's not. I'm pretty sure it's 2012. It was the like cartoon one. 2018 is Rise, which I did like, but they have different characters entirely. So anyway, 2012 version, he was the leader and he had like the most pressure put on him. So obviously he's a perfectionist. Like he just wants to keep everyone safe, but he struggles with that because his brothers kind of like don't have the same responsibility as him, so they don't take it as seriously, especially like Mikey. Rap is jealous because he thinks like that he should be the leader and he doesn't understand why, but it's because he's so hot-headed, but like he doesn't feel like he gets enough respect because he's like technically he's stronger like physically but not mentally. And then Donnie's just never had a girlfriend, I guess. But yeah, they each have their flaws. Mikey is a little bit unserious sometimes, um, but he's also overlooked a lot. Um, and it's like they all have their character traits and they bounce off each other, especially in like a group setting. You need to have characters who have distinguished um, interactions and personalities and like relationships with each other, not just as a group but as like pairs and and stuff like that, because you need to understand like how the characters see each other and how especially how your main character sees themselves, because um especially like I'm gonna come back to Katra because she's a really good example. She's the antagonist, yes, but she's been wronged and she sees herself as like a victim, but also she sees herself as like an unstoppable powerhouse, which she kind of is, but she does continue to fail, so maybe less than she thinks. But anyway, and then Shira obviously sees herself as, well, in the start, she's like, oh, I'm this soldier, but I'm not supposed to be a princess, but now I am, and now I've got this responsibility, and it kind of like drives her character as she discovers like what she's supposed to be doing and all of this, and it just kind of builds. And yeah, but I think characters are hard to write just because it's difficult to get yourself in a mental state that isn't your own, which is essentially what writing for a character is like. And I think a lot of like modern um, TV show writers don't really do that. They kind of know basically the character that they're writing, and it's the flanderization, whatever, of the characters where they just simplify all of their traits and they don't really think about them as a complex entity, because all the characters should be complex, but they're just not, because it's easier to write if you don't think really, really deeply about what they're actually like doing. You know, how would they react to the situation? Like, put yourself in their shoes, but they don't, because it's easier not to.
Yeah. I also just looked it up, and because you said the 2012 show, and I was thinking, is that the one that sort of grew on me? Because at first I was a bit turned off because of the animation style, but yeah, I was right. It is. But yeah, I will say from my own experience, and I actually, I actually had this. I was chatting to one of my friends who has read one of my books, and they were turning around and saying like it was a it was a tad hard to sort of distinguish like which character was what, but that's maybe partly because still working on that distinguishing, but it's also the case of in that book specifically, it was more almost like plot and message driven than character driven, and so it's and it was my first time doing a standalone, so it's I use a lot of things coming into there and balancing, but I know I know in terms of the trilogy, and I guess that's one of the things that does make it easier, and is why anyone who's able to write a standalone or like create a standalone film and that, and is able to get you to feel a certain way about the like protagonist character in the because you're never going to have the same amount of time in a standalone as you are in a trilogy or a series, and their ability to do that is something that I will always admire. But
Yeah.
I have noticed from doing the trilogy or other series that I'm working on in comparison to the standalones, you yeah, you've got more time, but then you've also got the case of how many characters do you have? Because if it's a series that follows one or two characters, then it's intrinsically easier than having larger groups of characters. And like, I'm someone who has a bit of a preference on the larger groups of characters, especially when it comes to like building a world or constructing or highlighting that. Because I think that's one thing that a lot of modern things do struggle with, and like I loved the Arrow and Flash and all of those TV shows, or Flash to an extent, but the thing that they always kind of struggled with, that even some films also struggled with, is like you have this giant galactic threat that's attacking a shipping yard, and it's like,
Yeah.
and obviously some of that in cinematic version is just budget, but it's budget and limited screen time, and those are things that you're never really going to get around. But the the I when it came to the because the trilogy for me was an interesting story because it started off as just one book and then I developed it into the trilogy, and slowly I was able to develop certain aspects about the different characters. And yeah, I guess one of those things, and I know the old Justice League animation did this quite intrinsically, where you had the sort of mainstay characters that had their different things and all of that, and then you had a couple of the background characters who didn't get so much focus and all of that, but they almost formed like the glue that kept the rest of the group together, and without them, there was just this massive notable gap.
Yeah. I think especially with like group uh, things like that, everyone is important, and that's not in like a oh everyone's important in their own way, kind of way, but like their interactions with each other are so like important. And I'm gonna take this back, okay, to something that is so niche, but I'm gonna not name this right. It's not the Backyardigans. It was the one where their pets like hold on, like not Neopets. They're like in a children's, hold on, I'm gonna Google it. Pets in a children's classroom. TV show. Kids TV show. Uh Wonder Pets. It's Wonder Pets. I'm talking about Wonder Pets. Right. Wonder Pets is a show um that I used to watch when I was younger, and it's such a weird thing to reference in this moment, but trust me, it's gonna make sense. So there's three main characters. Do you remember their names? No. So you've got this um hamster, guinea pig, and then there's a turtle, and then there's like a chick, like a duck, like a little baby duck thing. And okay, so the guinea pig is like the protagonist, and she's so sweet. She's protagonist done right, okay? Um, for kids' TV show. And then you've got the tortoise, who is like tortoise, not no turtle, and I can't remember if it's a guy turtle or a girl turtle, so my apologies. Um, but yeah, he like is friends with the guinea pig, and the duck is also friends with the guinea pig, and like they're a trio, and they're like technically they're heroes and they're saving other animals, but the duck and the turtle hate each other. They just hate each other. And like in the episodes where each other aren't there, but like the guinea pig is, they're like continuously being like, "Oh yeah, isn't it so great without that other guy? Isn't it so great? It's just us." And like without the guinea pig, they would not be a trio, and the show would not be the same if they weren't a trio. Okay, I'm just saying that right now. So yeah, that's my very niche kind of um, reflection on that. But yeah, group dynamics are important, and especially when it's like how the group has like different ideologies coming to interact with the world, because it not causes conflict, but it like its character differentiation, which I know that you said was kind of hard to distinguish in yours, but yeah, I like to write the characters as if they're kind of living the story. I give a very basic um, kind of 3 sentence prompt for what I want to write, and then I write the characters, and then they kind of write themselves into this plot very loosely, and it kind of goes places that I wouldn't have taken them, but the characters, they're going there. Okay, I don't control them. They just work on their own. So that's how I do it. But I'm a bit crazy, so
Yeah, in my newer series I've been writing, I'm still on. I say series. I'm still writing the first book,
yeah.
but it's it is one of the first times, and I've really only done this in short story format before, so it's one of the only times where I'm actually writing from the first person perspective instead of narrative, and I have noticed that being able to like slowly develop the characters with the insight of their thoughts, in terms of first person, is quite neat, and it's also different characters from all over. But it's also that kind of it kind of addresses that pairing off where when it looks at the plot for all of that, I am steadily almost trying to. There's about there's various different character perspectives. I won't say how many, but in some cases, in the more like immediate plots, I've broken them down into like two and two. So there's like two characters tied to one, and you get the two different perspectives, and then that kind of mirrors each other. But the wanted to go back, and this is it's a bit of a multi question. This one going back to what we were saying, because this is going to address both world building and multiverse, as it can kind of
Okay.
it can and can't be used for both of them. So, but and I'm going to use Halo as the basis here, although this could have like I'm also seriously contemplating this as well for some of mine, to help fill in some unknowns and things like that. Because the fear I always have, especially when it goes into like character subplots, is that I incorporate the character subplots in that, but I am intrinsically afraid of drifting way too far away from the main plot.
Yeah.
And but what I was going to say is, how do you feel about like adding in? What's your opinion of adding in what I guess are spin-offs or side stories that then reconnect to the plot? Because I, you've got the Xbox showcase happening either this weekend or like tonight or something. It's happening at some point this week, but I saw a video that got posted yesterday, and it was one of the Halo YouTubers, Hidden Xperia, and he brought in a load of the other Halo YouTubers to give their predictions and anticipations about what they were expecting. And two things came of it. One, which was quite interesting to any Halo fans who watched this, was the idea of learning from Halo 5 and Halo Infinite and splitting the multiplayer and the campaign into two separate games, two separate dedicated games. But the other bit was the idea of branching out from just the linear story path and covering, still addressing the plot in that, but addressing it through a lot more smaller side story games instead of one giant game. And I mean, is that what was your opinion on that? Like in terms of covering certain areas of the plot or filtering in things, because you do see it with Halo again and Star Wars and other worlds or these other continuities where you have these tie-in things. I mean, DC and Marvel do it as well, and you've got these tie-in comics that then fill in the blanks in a lot of cases, or maybe they don't fill in the blanks. Maybe they just continue a story that then doesn't get continued in the main thing. Maybe it only gets referenced or something. But
Well, I mean, it depends, I guess, on like how relevant it is, but I am a lover of side stories because a lot of the time I just really, really like the background characters and like their stuff. But when it comes to like introducing a separate kind of side along to the plot, sometimes it can be very, very relevant and really a really good way to like showcase the story as a whole. I'm going to talk a little bit about Rats now, which is a horror book, um, by someone I can't remember. Hopefully, it will come to me by the end of my spiel. But yeah, it's there's like in the first book there is a whole like subsection focusing on this girl's life. I'm not gonna go into detail because it's quite graphic. Um, but she's homeless essentially, and it goes from like her religious childhood all the way to like why she's homeless, and she's like on the street, and the whole book is about rats who are eating humans. So yeah, they do eat her. Like spoiler warning, but
I really hope.
yeah,
I really hope. I might have to put in a disclaimer specifically for my mother if she decides to watch this episode or listen to it because she's got a phobia of rats.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, very massive spoiler warning before I even mention that, but my apologies. Yeah, it isn't real, obviously. Rats could never do that, so you are free of that curse. But in the book, it's a horror book, so they exaggerate a lot. And the whole story, I think it takes up like an entire chapter, and you really like get to know this character, like who she is, what her motivations are, and all this, and you start to really care about her. You know that she's gonna die by the end of it, by the way. You just know. And when she does, you actually sympathize with her. But it also kind of like builds this link with the story and the world building that you wouldn't have had otherwise, because you're seeing the victims of this like event showing up, like you get to see how it actually affects the world. And I'm also going to bring it back to Sonic because a very drastic jump, I know. There is actually a, a side for the like movie verse. There was like a spin-off show called Knuckles, and I have some bones to pick with that show. Okay, that is a spin-off show done wrong. Um, and I'm not gonna get into it because if you do want to watch it, then um, it's quite new, so I won't spoil it. But my biggest grievance with it is that it doesn't really connect many dots um, in terms of the actual story. It's basically a spin off about Wade, which is one of the background characters. He shows up in like four scenes in the second film and like three in the first, and he's basically a one-liner man, and he's just like a joke through the entire like two films, and then he gets like this whole spin-off series, and they call it Knuckles, so it gets the engagement up. Thank you, Paramount Plus. I'm so impressed. I'm not, by the way. That was sarcasm, and I hated it. I loved it, but I hated it. Like as on its own, it would have been cool, but you baited it as like a Knuckles show, and I really, really liked Knuckles, okay, and I really wanted to see more of him, and he got character development through the show, so it was really relevant, but like it doesn't show that character development through the show. So it's just this whole show about Wade, and at the end they just kind of throw in Knuckles. Yay, he's like now the Earth is his home. So yeah, um, but anyway, grievance. That was absolutely pathetic as a spin-off show. It was just unneeded. Like I actually think it would have been better if it didn't exist for the actual lore of the show. But obviously we had to get Wade in there because I don't know. I don't know why they did that. It just upsets me a little bit. But there was a kind of spin-off in the movie verse that they did do right, and it was in the form of a mini comic. Okay, that was in the I think it was the Blu-ray exclusive version of the DVD set of the second film, and it is a mini comic, and it describes like how Knuckles went about finding Sonic after his whole tribe stuff, like when they were defeated by the owls, and the owls were also defeated by them or whatever. And it says like basically he joins this like fighting ring, and he wins a lot of money, and then he buys mercenaries to help him track down the energy source, and they end up tailing tails, haha, for a little bit. Um, so yeah, they get sidetracked, but eventually they do find Sonic, and it does link in and fills that gap because we saw Knuckles as like as a child backstory, but we never really got to know about what happened between then and him finding Sonic, and so that comic kind of clears a little bit of that up. Obviously, there's a lot that it misses out, which a lot of people thought were going to be addressed in the Knuckles series, but it wasn't. So yeah, maybe you should have made it a comic. Paramount Plus, because then it might have actually been relevant at all. Sorry, I'm really bitter because you have to pay for Paramount Plus. Okay, it's like a subscription, and I can't even lie. It was like £3.50 for a subscription to watch this background character I didn't care about. So yeah, I was really annoyed about that. If you liked Knuckles the show, good on you, bro. Good on you, because fair enough. Okay, a lot of people did like it, and that's cool. That's really cool for you. I, however, did not like it as much. So yeah, sorry to say.
Yeah, that little bit you mentioned about them choosing the specific title to draw more people in, or choosing like that as the basis, or all of that sort of stuff. It's the sort of flat out reason why I refuse to watch Rings of Power or the Halo TV series.
Yeah, I've
Be
heard bad things.
yeah,
Not, I'm not really sure. I can't remember if this is like a Halo thing or like I don't know something about a Master Chief.
yeah, that's
Um,
Halo.
okay, yeah, good. I don't actually know that much, unfortunately, but yeah, my dad does, and he's been absolutely mental about it. He's been like, "This isn't how it's supposed to be." He takes his helmet off in like every episode, and in one episode, he just straight up doesn't even have his helmet like at all. And I'm like, I don't even know, but this sounds annoying to me. So like,
Yeah,
wow, I can't believe they did that. That's really like stupid and dumb. And it's all a money grab, okay? And okay, this is something that really annoys me, especially these days. Creativity is lost to capitalism because these days it isn't about what memories you create for like the watchers of your show. It's not about creating a unique kind of viewing experience. It's about how many plugs can I get for like the sponsor of this video. I can't remember what I think it is a sponsor in like the big time things with like, oh yeah, Lay's crisps or whatever. Um, but it's just about like, oh yeah, product placement. This copyrighted song that we managed to pay for because we used so much budget on this instead of actually animating the main characters of the show. Yes, I'm talking about Knuckles again. Um, but it just irritates me because it could have been such a good show. They had the means for it, and let me tell you right now. Okay, I know that I've been going on about it for ages, but this is something that really annoys me, and I'm gonna like imaginary look you in the eye when I say this. They have the rights. Let me get close. They have the rights for the Sonic music. They have the rights for like a lot of Knuckles' actual game music. And did they use it? Did they use it in the end credit scene where he was like, "Oh, this music is my jam"? No, they didn't. No, they actually did not. Did they use it anywhere in the films or in the series? No. No, they didn't. And did they use really expensive, like, copyrighted music that they paid for with essentially what I feel like could have been the budget for actually CGIing his character? Yes. Yes, they did. I got a bit close there, but I'm really passionate about that because what the hell? What the hell? They have the rights for this music. They didn't need to pay for like this music that just doesn't. And yeah, a lot of like the budget just went on just straight up trivial things, and there was so many product placements. Doritos, another crisp that I can't remember. Another thing that I also can't remember, but I know that it happened. Okay, I watched a video on all the product placements, and there was so many, and they just, where has that money gone, Paramount? Where? Because it wasn't on the CGI budget. Was it on the music that you didn't need to use? Was it on the unnecessary Taylor Swift? Was it Taylor Swift? I don't know. Was it? There was Spotify was in there. I don't know. There was Facebook Marketplace. There was a Facebook Marketplace ad in the middle of a law drop. I'm sorry, I'm getting pressed, but like, it just annoys me, okay? Because you take away from actually good like story writing and plot and like creative media by just dropping like really janky, okay, product placements. You can have them if that's what you need to get by, but Paramount does not need that, okay? It's a money grab, especially with the title of the show. And a lot of people do this these days, where it just isn't like, it isn't, I can't remember the word. I'm gonna say loyal, but that's not the word. To like the actual show or the media it's coming from. It's just an adaptation that they have messed around with the like pure purpose of making as much money as they can from this beloved piece of media. And it breaks my heart because what do you mean? Like, the fans of this show are carrying you. And I guarantee that if you actually made a good show you would probably make more money and also more fans, which is what you want. Because when the good media came out for this thing that you're now milking for money, it was actually stuff that was making people invested in this show. Now you're just gonna like profit off of these old fans, and you're not going to make any new ones. So it's not sustainable. And maybe you do make new ones, okay? Maybe you do, and then your quality keeps dropping because you're just seeing the numbers. You're just seeing, oh yeah, we can have Knuckles in like 30% of this show, and we can still make absolute bank. Maybe we should do this with more franchises. Oh, did you want to see a My Little Pony movie? That's so interesting. How about we have three ponies that only show up in three scenes? That's so interesting. Do you know who the main character is? This random guy. Do you know him? No, he was referenced in like a background episode once though. That's so great for us. That was such a really weird example, but like that's what I'm seeing in my brain because like that's basically what they did, and it's sorry, I have been ranting,
Yeah,
but it just
you've sort of also inadvertently drifted back to a couple of older podcast episodes where we were talking about why you're seeing more people step away from the likes of Hollywood and start leaning into the indie is is the other thing like with the independent author mentality and everything like that like it on the author front is a bit twofolded. You've got the case of publishers are becoming a bit more selective now, but you've also got the case that people, especially younger creators now, have grown up seeing a lot of what essentially you just ranted about the repetition and like the just the milking of these things, and they're like, if this is what's happening, if you're going down that kind of route where you're giving your creation to someone else and all of that, a lot of people don't want that. They want to keep their thing unique and want to keep it to them. And I mean, like there is no denying that having a publisher does help an author and all of that, but it's one of those fine lines again where how much are you willing to give away as a creator in the sake of fame, I guess, or pro- proposed fame, because not all of it ends up becoming successful and all of that. How much of your creativity are you willing to stand aside, or how much of the stories or the canon or the universe's identity are you willing to take to the side for the sake of that other stuff, or are you just going to? Because it's the other thing with I mean, and this is something that hits all forms of creativity. You have it in just YouTube and Twitch and all of that as well. Like and I'm going to rant now.
go ahead.
the You have the mentality of these YouTubers who try to do all of these different things, or to go for the quick saturation and that and get the most views and all of that. But and you get it with Twitch as well, but they get all of these views, but there's absolutely no retention. There's no, again, to use your word, there's no loyalty there.
Yeah.
And yet, if you work on your own thing and design and develop its identity and keep true to it, yeah, you may not get the thousands, if not millions, of people that you would, but the group of people you may have are smaller, but they are way more dedicated to your work and loyal because you are you are showing fundamentally that you are doing a work that you care about. You're not just doing it to try and get well fame or money or things like that. You're not churning these things out or milking them. You are taking a lot of care into them. If that makes
There's a
sense.
Yeah, it does. I agree. I think Undertale is a good example of this. I'm not gonna go on another rant about Undertale, although I could, trust. But it's quite a small like collection of things, but it's so unique in like it's just everything. I love Undertale. It's so good. I have the collector's edition with the little like necklace, but it's also a music box. Oh, blessed. Anyway, um, it has two games that I'm aware of. I don't know. I don't think there's been another Undertale kind of related game. So there's Undertale and then Deltarune, and then I'm, if they're part of the same universe, then well, God. But Undertale has always kind of handled multiverse stuff, even in the original games and not just the fandom. But speaking of fandom, it has a massive one, and back when it first came out, huge. Okay, huge. I got into Undertale because of the fandom just coming up on my little innocent For You page because it was so big at the time. And nowadays there is I don't know if it's a resurgence of like Undertale fans, but I went into college. Okay, I spent like a year and a half um, at my big age, yes, absolutely loving Undertale and like creating content for it, like left, right, and center, because this was something I was really passionate about. And there's a lot of people who do the same. There's like spin off games, there's like fan art, like fan fiction, obviously. There's always fan fiction out there. Um, and there's just so much like love for this project. And there was the whole when it was first like in um what's it called? Like it was being made. There was like a GoFundMe and stuff, and like there was just so much love for the community. Like in oh yes, we want this to happen, so we will actually like pay um for it to continue progressing because it's such a cool idea and it's like original. I have right, and I had another point. YouTube clickbait channels frustrate me, and there's so many of them, and
Yep, yep, yep.
it's so annoying. And I'm gonna kind of segue this again. TikTok clickbait channels. How do you even get clickbait on TikTok? Well, let me explain. There is really good original big creators. They make a really good high grossing video, okay? It's good. It's cool. It's snazzy. It's amazing. A slime channel takes that video and puts their silly little ASMR next to it, sometimes with music over the top, which means that you can't even hear either of the videos, which is fine. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, cool. And I make sure to block every single one I see because it's stolen content. And if you were just uploading this without any additional, it technically wouldn't be like what I can't remember what the term is. There's like a free, not free to use, but like um when you use something but like you add something to it, like commentary channels or like reacts channels, they kind of add something to it, so it's technically okay. But I don't care because it's still stolen content, and I block all the channels that do this because it's so annoying. Like they'll come across my For You page and oh, I've seen this exact video like 14 times today because it's so big that all these slime channels want to make it, and I'm blocking channels that have like 2 subscribers, 1 video, 10 views, and I'm like, I don't care because they pop up all the time and they just want to farm views. And okay, I get it. Be on that grind set, babe. Like, if you need money that badly, fine. Like, I can kind of respect it. Except I can't. You're stealing content. It's just like sad. Just be original. And I know it's harder um to like actually do it than it is to say be original. But it annoys me because these actual creators aren't getting as many views as the slime channels are. And no, I haven't been a victim to slime channels. In case you're wondering where the anger was coming from, I just find them really irritating because I get locked in. Okay, I'm a victim of slime channels. I get locked in to the like really fun, oh it's colourful slime, and I can listen to this like, am I the asshole for telling my wife that she's a balloon or whatever? And then that was such a weird example. I'm sorry, but I just it's just so disjointed. I can't like just even describe like the anger. It's so annoying, and it's like it started off as like clickbait channels on YouTube where they're just like, oh my god, yeah, like, reacts to this thing, most dangerous animal in the world, and it's only dangerous to humans, and it doesn't even go into like the impact of its environment, which might be a niche thing that only I care about, but I don't care. And then you've got those channels that are specifically specifically animation channels, and it makes me upset, okay, because I do animation and I'm seeing this art form be turned into like a clickbait thing for like Poppy Playtime. They're just milking the characters that like kids know, and they're turning it into just like weird. It's Elsa bait. It's Elsa bait all over again. I'm not going to explain Elsa bait for those of you who don't know, but just trust me.
Guessing it's got a
Elsa bait
tighter
is bad.
Frozen.
Yeah, it's I don't want to explain it because it is explicit content aimed towards kids. It's not like specifically explicit, but it's like dodgy content. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
back in the day, um, yeah, it's basically just bait specifically for kids, but it's like kind of really weird. And they have just absolutely like mental like storylines that just shouldn't be broadcast to a young audience, but they are because they're impressionable and they'll click on bright colors. Um, and they do it for Sonic as well. And the way that they draw these characters drives me mad because they're like giving all the characters like six packs, and they're like 50, like they're just like not even the characters anymore. And it's like that shouldn't annoy me the most, the way they draw them, but it's like so clearly bait for people who know this blue hedgehog vaguely, and they're like, oh, I know him. Let me watch this really colourful video about Amy being stuck on the other side of a bridge and there's sharks in a pit. What is going on? What is actually going on? Like, it's brain rot. It's numbing content. It just makes me mad because, like, back in my day, oh, I'm sounding old now, but back in my day, okay, I was watching YouTube videos, yes, but I was watching, like, educational videos and, fun little count with me or unboxing videos or, you know what? Minecraft videos. And I don't care. The old Minecraft videos in like the early 2000s were absolutely riveting content. They were original, there was mods, there was I can't remember what they were called, but was it Sam and Pat or whatever gaming? I don't know. They were amazing. Pat and Jen, Pat and Jen I think it was. And yeah, just like all these Dan TDM, Stampy, oh my god, that's what I used to watch. And nowadays, it's just like Skibbity Toilet, episode 57. I don't know anything about Skibbity Toilet, and I don't want to get into that either because it just makes me sad. Because it just makes me think about how brain rot is actually genuinely affecting like the recent generations. I have two siblings. One of them is kind of old enough to be not affected by it, but one of them is quite young, and I see it real time, and it's like wow, I this is like troubling actually. So yeah, but that's quite a heavy topic, so maybe I won't touch on that.
Yeah, maybe being conscious of time and things. Maybe we can do that as you were a returning guest or something.
I have a lot to talk about all the time, so
Yeah.
if you do see me again, don't be surprised.
I also just looked it up just out of curiosity because you mentioned about the crowdfunding and everything. I didn't actually realise this. Tabletop Simulator was a game that got released after a successful crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, a lot of indie games like that tend to be. I only know that because I watched loads of lore videos. Okay, I'm a massive, massive nerd. But yeah, I like that kind of stuff. It shows such a sense of community and if you like, there was actually a bunch of like things you could pay for to like be added to the game and stuff. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head. Um, all I'm thinking about is Temmie and the dog that are technically the artist and the coder of the game. But I know there were a few things like added based on people's funding, so
Hmm.
it was a very like
Community
community
effort.
thing. Yeah.
And I mean, like, okay, we'll we'll drift on to probably starting to. How long have we been going?
Uh,
Almost an hour and a half.
yeah, that's a decent amount of time.
Yeah, so just before I go to the final question, and I will say after the recording concludes, I have got a Sonic based question for you, and I'm going to ask you this because you're the you're the first person I've met to be this knowledgeable about the Sonic universe, so I'm interested to hear your opinion on it. But
Okay, okay.
was just before we do get to the actual final question of and the usual final question, um, what was I going to say? uh, oh, yeah, is there anything that you would like to just make a mention of about your work or anything?
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So I am an artist and an animator. I'm going to university, British university, all British people, for animation this year.
Britain?
I know, scary. Oh, tea, crumpets. Oh, I'm so scared. Anyway, sorry, I'm so dramatic. I can't help myself. But yeah, um,
I
I'm
thought I
British
think
born and raised.
I think it was the crumpets more than anything that got me there because you don't really when people do that sort of thing when they mention like tea and all like crumpets so they don't come up as much as they used to.
No, but I actually have crumpets on the brain because literally about 20 minutes before recording, I was scanning them. I actually had two crumpets with clover butter, okay, because I don't like real butter because I'm a freak, okay. I like my salty, spreadable neon yellow butter on my crumpets, which I did have this morning, and I did have tea with them. So yes, I'm a stereotypical British person. Thank you very much. Born and raised. Anyway, um, yeah. So I do a lot of art. I have a YouTube, which is under zero is Nebulous. Nebulous spelled Nebulous, I think. I'm not safe if that's
I'll
wrong.
link it in the channel
Um,
description
yeah, but
or video description.
right now I'm working on. Hey guys, if you like Sonic, you're gonna love what I have planned because I'm straight up rewriting the entire Knuckles series. I hated it, and if you did too, well, you're in luck. I'm rewriting it, so you don't have to. Anyway, um, yeah, that's pretty much all I do. I post a lot of hyperfixation content on my socials. Sometimes I do speed paints, but I'm trying my hand at commentary. Oh, also, I do also have a podcast because, as you can probably tell by my dramatic yapping, I'm quite used to this kind of thing. Um, Me and my good friend Alice, we have a podcast called Sex in the Bullpit. Yeah, that's what it's called. So yeah, and we just recently released our Backrooms episode, like yesterday or the day before at the time of recording this. So it's pretty neat and new. Yeah.
Wait, I heard that correctly, didn't I?
Yep, yep. That is what it's the official name is called. It's called
Right.
Sex in the Bullpit. Yep.
All right then.
Yep. 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 I never claimed to be a normal, satisfied member of society. Sometimes weird things happen that can't be helped. I did, in fact, come up with the name, so I am to blame. However, but it's fun. There is no explicit stuff like that, by the way, in the podcast. Um, it's just a funny name. I promise. Promise.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to make a mention of, because we were talking about this and it, going off of the crowdfunding and community stuff and all that. I remember actually posting this in the Kofi Discord. I think it was one of my first posts, but it was making the mention of like one of the things I'd set up for like one of the higher tier of memberships, which is a a bit of a community thing where people, if they wanted to, would have the ability to create a character that would fit into my fantasy world's world, essentially, the world building, and they could design as much or as little of the character. There was, and the only one golden rule of it was please do not break the law.
Well, fair enough. I
L
mean, I
L
love
O
stuff like
R
that.
E. That is the actual world building law. Please do not
Oh
do
yeah,
that. But well,
yeah,
don't break the other law either. But yeah.
yeah, that too. I mean, that is kind of important, but less is important as the law.
Yeah, but I thought that was a nice little like community thing to throw in, and It's honestly probably in one of the series in my writing where it would be the most viable as well, because it's this massive world that's got a age-old history and stuff beyond the trilogy and all of it. So there's plenty of room for characters.
Yeah.
And okay, I will then mosey on to the final question, which is the general one, and that is if you were if you had one piece of advice for young and budding or independent creators who are just starting out, what would it be?
Okay. Perfectionism is a curse. If you spend all of your time, like, nitpicking your creations, you're never going to grow. You need to step back, because I know it's a tired saying, but you are your own worst critic. It has taken me a very, very long time to kind of build even a minor audience, and even now I'm creating stuff and I'm kind of throwing it into a void, but that doesn't matter because I'm having fun, and a lot of people, they do forget why they started, so just have fun with it. And also, one of the pieces of advice that I've heard is, if you're trying to get traction on like posts, just post everything. If you think it looks bad, post it. Whip, post it. Perfect, amazing piece, post it. You never know what people are going to see or find or like of yours, because everything is subjective. Well, not everything, but most things are subjective, especially when it comes to art and writing. Even if you don't like it, someone might. There is like 8 billion people in this world, and I would be very surprised if not a single person out there showed even a little bit of interest. There is always possibility, and if you just keep going, then eventually something will happen. So, yeah, don't give up. Just stop, trying to perfect everything. Be aware that sometimes, you know, things take a little time. But as long as you're having fun, then it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, don't be afraid to it, I will just go on to that before we just wrap up. Um, I know that when it comes to well, I will flat out say this when it comes to like the grammatical side and all of that. The first couple of books I've done have not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, it's like I'm starting out. These are my first works as an author and everything. If I want to be I want that to be shown that I'm developing as an author. I don't want to immediately have these things get released and be seen as, oh, these are perfect, I don't make an error or anything like that. No, I want them to know that I'm making these errors and I am developing. If I am going to go back and fix it, it's not going to be for about maybe 10, 20 years or something like that, and then I will go back if this turns out being successful and everything. I will
Yeah,
go back and then fix them and then release them. But I'm not going to do it as soon as I've released them. Like, they are there. It shows that I'm not perfect. It shows that I've got room for improvement and all of that. But I will say to anyone who does see works like that, because I've seen it with professional authors and gamers and all of that,
mm.
that if you are going to advise them, and this is just be a common courtesy, do advise them. Don't be horrible.
Yeah. Constructive criticism, okay? Just straight up criticism, it crushes dreams. It crushes hopes, okay? And hope is the foundation of dreams, so maybe don't do that, be kind.
Yeah. But yes, we will wrap up there. Thank you very much for joining me, Ness, or
Yep.
Zero, or Nebulous, one of them.
Whatever. Whatever, I go by a
And
lot of things. Thank you for having me.
no problem. And for those of you who have been watching on YouTube, please do, or well, now also listening on Spotify, although the Spotify bit will be out later than the YouTube because I'm a bit behind with the Spotify releases. But
Yippee! Spotify!
please do comment, like, and subscribe. Please do check out the links in the description. I'll have my usual plethora of links, but I will also tie in Ness's YouTube and your Ko-fi page if you want
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, sure.
So they'll be in the description. And yes, welcome back to the return of the podcast. I've got a fair backlog of people who have expressed interest, so hopefully these episodes will start being a bit more regular again. And I, I do love how Spotify's just like going on like which season, which episode is this, and I'm just thinking it's like I wasn't intending on doing this in that format, but okay.
I feel that we did that as well. I was like, oh my god, season? Well, I guess we're gonna have to have a structure now. Can't be helped. More episodes.
But yes, thank you all very much for watching. I hope, and this is being pre-recorded before release and everything, so whichever artwork I'm deciding and whatever stuff's on the screen, I hope you liked the visual side of it. This has been recorded with no visuals, so they're all getting edited in. And until next time, welcome to the Kingdom of Athalas and the world of Fellowmind books. Cheerio.